Welcome to the Nerd Party.
They can travel anywhere in time and space.
Off we go into time and space.
So all of time and all of space is sitting out there.
Welcome to Time and Space, one married couple's adventure through the Doctor Who universe. I'm Jessica Nunn.
And I'm her legally married companion, Phillip.
As we welcome the 13th Doctor, we thought it only appropriate to cover regeneration in Doctor Who. Of course, covering all our favorite Time Lords' regeneration would take several hours, so for this episode we'll be looking at the nuWho regenerations of 9 to 10, 10 to 11, and 11 to 12. Maybe we'll throw in a War Doctor, too.
Ooh. Now, darling, I think we should explain to our listeners that our household's a little bit of an illness.
Our household is currently plague-ridden, yes.
So, listeners, if you're a little grody, that's married couples share married illnesses.
Hashtag married life. In the meantime, let's talk about regeneration.
So, with nuWho, I guess the first place to start is with Doctor number 9 going to Doctor number 10. This, of course, was in the parting of ways. The Ninth Doctor, faced with the threat from the Daleks, was saved more or less by Rose, sort of ingesting or being taken over by the heart of the TARDIS. We sort of got, I guess if fans were waiting for it, some may have been, some may not have been, we got the kiss with the Ninth Doctor and Rose, where he sort of took off the TARDIS energy and then sort of died from that and regenerated. And that was our sort of first regeneration.
Time Lords have this little trick. It's sort of a way of cheating death. Except it means I'm going to change. And I'm not going to see you again. Not like this. Not with this daft old face. And before I go...
Don't say that.
Rose. Before I go, I just want to tell you were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And you know what? So was I.
Kind of a shocking one. I mean, I think both of us went back to watch the Ninth Doctor. Like, we weren't watching the Ninth Doctor when he was there.
Yes.
So he was only there for a year. And I know some people were disappointed that when it was announced that Doctor Who would be resurrected or regenerated, if you will, on television, they're like, oh, yay. And I think that first week that it came on TV, it was like, and Chris Eccleston is leaving. You know, and so you sort of got like a... What?
Oh, really? Straight away?
Yeah, because I guess he sort of announced already. But anyway, what you sort of think about the Ninth Doctor leaving us?
Is the question about the Ninth Doctor leaving us or about Christopher Eccleston leaving us? Because I think that those are two separate things. So I get the impression that Christopher Eccleston was not happy being Doctor Who from the beginning, and I have very mixed feelings about that. I mean, obviously, that's an actor's prerogative, but at the same time, I feel a little bit personally afflicted. You know, what do you mean you're not happy being Doctor Who? What's wrong with you?
Especially the first year. I mean, you know, looking back, it's hard to say, but in 2005, that's off the top of my head, restarting Doctor Who, something of a risky proposition. You know, we think of this sort of enduring franchise, but it had been off television for several years, and you know, you had the TV movie that really hadn't ginned up really that much interest, and so kind of starting it again was a risky business. So then have the main Doctor quit after the first year. It's kind of like, well, can we keep this going? You know, it's sort of like a... That said, I did enjoy watching this episode and getting, you know, you got Rose, Captain Jack, and the feeling of the Ninth Doctor. I really wish we did have more. I really wish he had at least one more year, because I do like the Ninth Doctor, because he's very much a, I don't know, PTSD is a little too far, but he's a survivor. He's a war survivor. And I think this episode where the Daleks have come back, even though I think there was a Dalek episode earlier in his season, but the Daleks have come back, you know, in full force, you know, from the Time War or whatever, and you just get that feeling of the Ninth Doctor that he's sort of the trauma of being in the Time War is sort of coming back to him, and he knows what the cost will be.
Yeah, and I think he's a brilliant actor, and I'd be very interested to know why he chose to leave, because I think that there was a lot of really good stuff with him and Billy Piper, who I think is great in this. I'd just be curious to know what his reasoning is.
Because, of course, he didn't come back for the 50th.
Right, yes.
Unfortunately.
And, yeah, has just never reappeared. And one of the things that I love about Doctor Who is that all of the characters reappear. They come back, whether it's Sarah Jane coming back forever or, just a random... I just like that they come back so often. I think that says a lot about the franchise. And so I'm sad that Christopher Eccleston mucked it up.
Well, I think the thing about the Ninth Doctor regeneration, looking back, and again, this is the beginning of the new Who series, which I know I keep saying, but just, it's kind of starting all over again. So you can't really fault them for the way they do certain things, but it's not a long goodbye, right? It's almost as if, the name's in the title, The Parting of the Way, so, you kind of, I think, already knew early on that he was going to leave, so just a matter of time. But it wasn't sort of like as we'll see later, a long goodbye of the Ninth Doctor and him, saying goodbye to everyone. It was sort of a snap, that we might talk about in a second here as well, where he sort of quickly explains to Rose, by the way, I'm going to change, it's going to be different. He does have a goodbye with Rose, that's not, but then it's sort of like, psh, boom, regenerate.
Yes, and I wondered how much of that was because he just got a year in. When we move on to the other regenerations, you get these flashbacks of other companions and other lives, and I really enjoy those, but he hadn't created that history yet, so.
And then with the actual regeneration, I sensed that with this Doctor, the Ninth Doctor, a lot of the mythos that we now know, here where we are in the series at least, it's interesting how much, this is Russell doing the show at this time, how much he thought about everything. Because there's a lot of stuff mentioned in this episode where the Doctor's making a choice. It's the Delta Wave or whatever he has to make from the station to destroy the Daleks. But then he finds out if he does it, he's going to destroy everyone. Like all of Earth, all of human. And so the choice is, does he press the button to destroy the Daleks and the humans? Or not and let the Daleks win? Which, of course, we'll see later in, the 50th anniversary. When the War Doctor has the same choice always goes to the Time War and the Doctor and the Daleks of, he's going to have to make the choice. And is there another way? And, of course, this time, Rose saves him as maybe Clara saves, quote-unquote saves, during the 50th anniversary with, not pressing the moment button. But I think it's interesting. We're going to see these themes coming back. The Doctor having to make a big choice when regeneration comes. And then what does he do with it? But yeah, I was sad to see the Ninth Doctor go. This was our sort of first regeneration special effects that we've come to know and love. This, of course, is the first time they did it with sort of the yellow energy and looking like a yellow quantum leap or something,
Yes, yeah. And I like it better than the dizzying effects of the old day regenerations. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it a lot better.
Yeah. So, and of course, we get a new Doctor pops up. The 10th Doctor. He gets a few lines of, new teeth. This is weird. And then, where was I? Oh, Barcelona. And so we get sort of that nod that it's a new Doctor, but there's continuity because he remembers what he was just talking about to Rose, but that it is our newness to it. And so,
yes.
And David Tennant looks so young.
Oh, I love David Tennant.
But yeah, and so, I guess other than that, there really wasn't much other than we were keeping the same companion.
Yes.
Rose was still there. It was in the TARDIS. I think a lot of regenerations we've seen, usually, I think, well, I'll have to think about it without saying that, but I think they all happen in the TARDIS. All the regenerations always seem to happen.
There's one that definitely happens on the ground. A guy lying on the grass, one of the old school ones.
Oh, Fourth Doctor.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, if I had to think about it. But the majority of the time, you got to put the Doctor in the TARDIS for the magic to happen. That's not necessarily true, but that's sort of what we do.
And a lot of times you see the TARDIS, at least with 10 to 11 and 11 to 12, the TARDIS gets destroyed, right?
Right. But in this case, we weren't changing showrunners. We were just changing actors.
Yeah.
So we said goodbye to Chris Eccleston. Again, I was sad. Like I said, I like the Ninth Doctor, but we welcomed David Tennant. And then that brings us to
I don't want to go.
Ten to 11 regeneration.
The end of time.
Yes. Now, of course, this is David Tennant's second regeneration. We're sort of skipping over.
Yes. I don't know. I guess we can take 30 seconds. The next time that we talk about this, but that counted as a regeneration during Journey's End. That's off the top of my head. When that sort of meta crisis, whatever they called it, that counted as a regeneration. That was sort of a... Okay.
Yeah. Loses his hand. Okay.
And then makes a new doctor so Rose can have her own doctor to take home. Yes. So.
Like a party favor.
That's right. Well, of course, and we're going to talk about this at the end, but as we go through all these regenerations, it had been established early on in the canon, quote unquote, of Doctor Who, that he could only have 13. 12 regenerations, but 13 doctors was the limit. And so when you sort of had that meta crisis, that sort of counted, quote unquote, as another regeneration. And I was like, okay. It was sort of funny when we came to, and I know we're skipping out of order, but when we came to 11's regeneration, it was sort of a hurried, like, oh, by the way, the War Doctor counted one as one, and then the meta crisis counted as one, so this is his 13th. I'm like, okay. And like, so the show will make sense now. Like, okay.
Well, and I want to come back to that, but yeah, when we get to that, talking about why the 11th Doctor is allowed to grow old. Right. And all of that, rather than regenerating. But we'll come back to that. Let's stick with David Tennant.
And this is the End of Time Part 2. This
yes.
is kind of... I did watch this contemporaneously. What's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know, but it's fun to watch you try to find it.
I watched this...
Recently. He means recently.
No. I watched it when it
he watched it when it came on. Okay.
Contemporary to the viewing as an adverb. But anyway.
I love you so much.
Yes. I don't have an English degree.
And you clearly do not.
That's right. What do you do with a BA in journalism? So I do remember watching this when it happened, and of course, watching this again recently, I was surprised to learn. I thought, oh, well, this is just your regular Christmas special, but it wasn't. This is the only 2-part Christmas special in the nuWho era, because the End of Time Part 1 was the Christmas special. The End of Time Part 2, with the actual regeneration, was New Year's week, which we don't often get a Doctor Who that late or early, however you want to phrase that, in the year. So I thought that was interesting, that you had to sort of wait after Christmas to see what was going to happen. But this sort of felt like 10 was getting his goodbye. This is sort of like...
Yes, his long goodbye.
Exactly. As opposed
to 9's. Yeah.
And then we sort of had been leading up to the 10th Doctor leaving us. This is going to be off the top of my head. There was a previous special... I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I can picture it in my head. He was in the bus went to the desert... And they had to save it, come back. But anyway, that was first when he got the prophecy. He will knock 3 times.
Oh, yeah. 4 times.
Or 4 times.
4 times,
yes.
yeah.
And so we sort of got of course we knew, because, the actors always announce when they're leaving. But we knew Tennant was going to be leaving. There was a great gnashing of teeth, all that stuff. People were wailing in the streets.
Oh, yeah.
But this was sort of going to be the long goodbye to the Doctor's regeneration.
And I felt like it was... a little long. I mean, there were so many people who knocked 4 times. It drug out probably a little bit longer than it necessarily needed to.
I thought it was interesting. Regeneration, of course, is a cheat. It's an original cheat from the show, just so they could keep the show going and have new actors as it came, for various reasons, whether they quit voluntarily or involuntarily. But,
much like Menudo.
There you go.
My other fan favorite.
I don't know what to do with that. But anyway, of course we get the Master coming back, who died. But of course, as in all sci-fi properties, nobody ever really dies.
But he doesn't regenerate.
Right.
And I'm not sure how I feel about that, because then he does regenerate later into Missy.
Right.
He clearly has regenerated previously.
Right. Yeah.
So did he and the 10th Doctor both get their
meta crisis?
Their second
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's timey-wimey. That's always the explanation.
Yeah. I like this master, but yeah, I'm not sure continuity-wise it works for me.
But again, here we come back to, and I get it, regeneration, you always necessarily want it to be almost like a movie. You want it to be an epic story. But here we get the Time War again. It's the Time War with the Time Lords, Gallifrey, and they're trying to find a way to come back. And you have Rassilon, played by James Bond. But it's very interesting because there's a line when I was rewatching this, and I almost missed it, where the sort of the War Council, if you want to call it that, is reporting that the Doctor has stolen the moment. And they're not talking about David Tennant. They're just saying, oh, because they don't even know what he's doing right now. And I'm like, that doesn't happen till the 50th anniversary, when the War Doctor steals the moment.
Oh.
And so I don't know, again, how much all the showrunners had in mind about the Time War. Because, I mean, they really don't tell you, like, the time lock of, that there was a time lock on the war, to stop them from destroying everything. And, of course, we know Gallifrey eventually gets hidden and all this stuff. But it all seems to come together. But, of course, it's all out of order in all these different series. And so I just thought it was interesting that this mythos, because you almost think, like, oh, they said this earlier. But they didn't say it earlier. This is when they say it. And so it's very interesting to me that mythos gets build up more and more about the Time Lords and the Daleks and the Time War and what happened. Because we get the sort of we have a great companion for this special.
Yes, Donna's grandpa, who I just love.
Wilfred, I believe. Yes. An unlikely companion, but one who's been there early on. I mean, and then the Doctor sort of accuses him at the end of, you've been there the whole time in front of me, haven't you? Waiting for me.
Yeah, when he finally, #spoilers, knocks 4 times.
Yes.
And then we have this lovely Star Trek moment.
Against the glass.
The radiation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, I'll admit, when I watched this recently, I would just watch part 2, but in part 1, there is a conversation that the Doctor has with his new companion here, and says that regeneration is like dying. And that there's another man that shows up, walking around, and it's sort of
and I'm gone.
Right, and that's sort of a thing we hadn't heard of before about regeneration. And so, what do you think about that? Viewing the Doctors like that, it's the whole, I guess, philosophical thing. Is it the ship? Or, if you keep building new parts in the ship and take away old parts at the same time, is it the same ship?
Same ship, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like it as a philosophy. Because it's true, you get a completely different character every time. Each Doctor has his own quirks and his own foibles and his own dress code, or perhaps I should be saying now her.
That's right.
And so every one of them is different. And so a part of the Doctor does die.
It's just very sad to think about when you think about all the Doctors, Is it like, I mean, there's so many franchises. I'll steal one. Is it like the Trill in Star Trek? There's sort of these the symbionts who live inside the person, and the symbiont lives on forever, but you get new hosts. So if people who watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine, you had Jadzia Dax, and then you later had Ezri Dax. So is it the same person because the symbiont's the person, and then the host has new qualities or whatever? But with the Doctor, what's the same? Is it just a memory? Is it a spirit? Is it a whatever? And then
yeah, I mean, it's the idea, regeneration as reincarnation, the soul being the kernel of who you are, that it's just the kernel. It's just a small part, and the rest of it is built on something else.
But we get a lot of prophecy in this episode because the Ood have basically told the Doctor he's going to die, that his time is up, and he, of course, the 10th Doctor, has gotten the prior prophecy from the woman in the earlier special. So there's a lot of build-up, like I said, for the 10th Doctor, kind of building up that he's going to leave. It's sort of not the snap that the 9th Doctor got. Again, and I get it, because David Tennant was sort of seen as the Doctor. I mean, Chris Eccleston, by that I just mean he did it longer, just simply he did it longer. But everyone sort of felt very comfortable with David Tennant as the Doctor, that he, or at least, in that time period, he sort of was it.
Yes.
And so when he left, it's like, oh.
Well, and again, because Christopher Eccleston was so brief in the new Who. So yeah, David Tennant is the one who establishes the series as, yes, it is back, it is continuing, it is strong. And so people got to... And I think it's the start of people very much falling in love with each new Doctor. You know, one of the things that I see over and over again as the Doctor regenerates on my Facebook is, oh no, not this guy. We hate this guy. Not Matt Smith. Matt Smith's never going to be David Tennant. And then 3 years later, you're like, no, we love Matt Smith, not Peter Capaldi. No, I can't take it. And then 2 years later, oh no, not Peter Capaldi can't leave. And so you have this, you know, this rise and fall of getting the opportunity to fall in love with each new Doctor, even though change is always difficult for us humans.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, at the 10th Doctor, again, his actual regeneration, we sort of got a delay effect. You know, with the 9th Doctor, it was sort of a bit of a delay, because he's sort of like, okay, I'm dying. Let me kind of...
Let's talk about Barcelona.
Yeah, well, you know, he sort of built it up to it. But with the 10th Doctor, he sort of, quote-unquote, died with the radiation poisoning. He held it in, because he's like, first I have to go get my reward. And
yes, and this is where we get our going back to see everybody.
And this, I mean, that is one of the good traditions of Doctor Who, that when you regenerate, even in the classic era, or usually, there is usually, I'll strike usually, a flashback in some way or some form of all the prior companions, an acknowledgement of what has come before. And I thought this was again, I felt it was, I'm not complaining. I loved it all, but it was a little bit, you know, like, they're really stretching this for the 10th Doctor. But again, yes. I enjoyed it. I'm not complaining. I'm just
like... Well, by that time, they had stretched so much. I felt like, and it's difficult, because I don't think it could have been done in one Christmas special, but I don't think it necessarily needed two either. It was about, you know, 1.5 would have done the job.
But I did enjoy seeing Martha is my girl, so I don't really know if I like her marrying Mickey. But anyway, you got to see Martha and Mickey. You got to see, I can't remember her name, but the granddaughter from the John Smith episode, which I thought was sweet. You know, when he lost his memory and he was the professor with the kid from Love Actually.
Yes, yes, she's written the book, yeah.
Right. And then you sort of have, and Donna was already in the episode, so you didn't really have to say goodbye to her.
Yeah, you get to see Sarah Jane.
Captain Jack.
Oh, yeah.
I like that his gift to Captain Jack is just getting him laid. But
yeah, but that's the right gift for Captain Jack, so that audience works for me, yeah.
And then I did love the ending with Rose, because I think I almost forgot that she was there. Because, of course, you have to go back to where you began. And just to have Billie Piper come back for this. I mean, she has later in the franchise, but I thought that was very sweet to go back to literally the very beginning.
Yeah, and like I say, that's what I enjoy about the franchise, is that everybody comes back, even if it's just for this little cameo.
Of course, the bigger, the sort of behind the scenes with this, of course, is not only was it a new Doctor, it's a new showrunner. So this is Russell B. Davies handing off to Stephen Moffat. So this is sort of literally, we can destroy everything. We're not going to have not that they couldn't, but we're not going to have the same companion like we did with, the Rose handoff from 9 to 10.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying she's a thing that can be handed off, but you know what I mean. But, it's sort of like reset, literally.
Yeah.
And so, but what do you feel about, the 9th Doctor, sort of like, the sacrifice, I'm going to cheap death, here I go, bye. Where the 10th Doctor's like, I don't want to go.
Yeah. And of course, it's possibly one of the most famous Doctor moments is David Tennant saying, I don't want to go. And I think it's lovely. And I think, again, it epitomizes each one is different, and their various reactions. He's done it. He didn't want to do it. It's a little bit, it's Christmas, so this is what's on my mind. Take this cup.
Yes.
Yes.
A little more Easter, but okay.
No, I know, but it's still all Jesus, darling.
A different kind of regeneration there.
Yes. And I think it possibly was a reaction, even if it were subconsciously, to Christopher Eccleston's "Get me the hell out of here."
Right.
You know?
Well, I think it was a little pulling the heartstrings, because with 10th Doctor going, like, I don't want to go, I'm like, David Tennant, you said you wanted to leave. A little false modesty here of like, guys, they fired me. I really don't want to leave you fans.
No. It can be you make the choice to move on to other projects, but you're still so in love with the character you're playing, and I understand that.
And so we get, and then this was a very explosive regeneration. I think it's obviously they just wanted a new TARDIS set. But anyway, so it was sort of a big boom, because I guess maybe because he was reluctant. I don't know, I'm just creating a fan theory here. A reluctant regeneration, so it was a much more powerful release of regeneration energy. We get sort of the same effect. I guess that's sort of the nuWho regeneration effect. Destroys the TARDIS more or less, and then we get 11th Doctor.
I'm a girl.
I'm crashing, Geronimo.
Yes.
And of course, now that brings us to...
I will always remember when the Doctor was me.
Raggedy Man. Good night.
No. Please don't change.
11th Doctor to 12 with The Time of the Doctor.
Yes.
Now, this was a very interesting year, because this is, of course, during the 50th anniversary year. Just prior to The Time of the Doctor, we'd have had The Day of the Doctor, which was the 50th anniversary special with 10 and 11 and War Doctor and all that. And so now we're go to another special, or Christmas special, of the Time of the Doctor with Matt Smith leaving us. And I'd say it's a different kind of ending for a Doctor than we've seen.
Yeah, completely different. You've still got Gallifrey causing all the problems. There's a theme here.
Yeah, those Time Lords will always come back to haunt you.
Yeah, but you've got this opportunity to grow old, which
and to stay put.
And to stay put, yes. Even though, I don't know, is that what he wants? I mean, it is for this moment, I guess. But,
I mean, because that's always sort of been, especially with, all of them. But I think the 11th Doctor has always pushed the theme that I'm always wandering, I'm always traveling. He's had, like, especially with Amy and Rory, when you had this couple and this married couple and these parents eventually. But they sort of eventually represented, like, we do love traveling, but we do want to have a life. And then, sometimes near the end of their run, they try to split their real life with their Doctor life, but, the Doctor coming to Christmas dinner, all these different things, but of course he doesn't stay, and that's the story of the Doctor. He never stays. And so with this one, he finally stayed in one place.
And has all those lovely children's drawings.
And became Father Christmas,
and
apparently.
and mostly became Father Christmas, and that's really lovely. I like that a lot. And then, of course, it all goes tits up.
Mm-hmm. Now, he and again, you said it earlier, he died of old age. We've only seen that one or two more times. Ostensibly, the first Doctor died of old age. I don't go too deep into it, but that seemed to have been at least the in-universe explanation, not the we fired Will Hartnell explanation. But anyway, and so, the Doctor, it had been hundreds of years, and even in the 11th Doctor life. So I don't know exactly. I forget. I'm sure he said a number. I can't remember off the top of my head. 200 years, 300 years, something like that. And then, of course, we also hit against the mythos of the Doctor and Time Lords that this was his 13th regeneration, that he would actually die, that there would be no regeneration. It was only because of Clara pleading with Crack in the Wall to Gallifrey and the Time Lords to help the Doctor. I thought it was a confusing time. We won't go into the whole episode. It was a confusing plotline, I thought, about bring back Gallifrey, and he has to say his name, and then I don't know, whatever. But anyway, about that, they, instead of, I guess, coming back, they sort of, quote-unquote, sacrificed their chance to return after the destructive efforts of the 10th Doctor special and just gave him a new regeneration cycle.
Yeah.
And was a very explosive regeneration, even more than 10's.
Yes, hugely explosive. Yeah, and he uses it to destroy all of the bad guys and things like that. I liked the choice in terms of the Time Lords giving him another round of regeneration. As you say, it felt rushed. It was like they had this great idea. They knew they were running out of time, and they had this great idea of how to fix it, and so went ahead and sort of smushed it in. And now they've got, many, many more to come. But yeah, it does confuse the issue, because the whole thing about the War Doctor is that he wasn't really a doctor, he was a fighter. And so does he really count as one of the doctors? And, all of those sorts of weird timey-wimey issues.
Now, sort of the mythos of regeneration that we see repeated here, and I guess we saw it earlier with the 10th Doctor, is that when the regeneration comes, there's a bit of a reset. With the 10th Doctor, he sort of, after the battle, after he quote-unquote died from the radiation, he sort of took off his scars and had a clean face.
Yes.
Here with the 11th Doctor, he regenerates to his original appearance. Because I remember the first time watching it, I did feel like I was going to get fooled. I mean, I didn't, they fooled me is what I'm trying to say, is that, because we saw the regeneration of 11, the energy, and then we see the shoes walking in the clothes. When Clara walks into the TARDIS, all the clothes are on the floor. So you think, oh, it's going to be new clothes, and you see these boots walking up. I thought it was just going to be the new Doctor, but they sort of tricked us. And no, it's still 11, and we're like, oh, no. And then they sort of, Matt gives this lovely speech. I won't do it right now, because it is one of my favorite speeches from the 11th Doctor about who we are, and change happens, and I'll always enjoy being the Doctor, but change has got to happen. So I think it's a good speech. I don't feel like Matt necessarily got the same treatment that David did about this big, long, we're saying goodbye. And that's not necessarily in a critical way, but that I think Matt was sort of giving, or the 11th Doctor giving a speech to audiences, because Matt and the 11th Doctor is beloved by certain fans, I think, at this point, because by this point, Doctor Who had really become popular in America. I mean, even more so, sort of at its peak.
So Matt Smith is the American Doctor, whereas David Tennant was the...
I don't know if I would go that far, but I'm just saying that it was definitely a shock for a regeneration that had to be sort of... Matt is sort of course, we'll see it in Deep Breath, the next episode, when we see Matt Smith again. He's basically giving the fans, hey, changes happen. It's good. It's fine. Yeah. Roll with it.
Yeah. And then, of course, as you say, he does have to come back and make that phone call and be like, it's cool. Settle down. It's fine, y'all.
Which I thought was a little much, but we won't
go
there.
Yeah. A little bit too timey-wimey for me.
But we get our first sort of snap regeneration. I mean, again, we got a little bit with the 9th, but we don't sort of get the full quantum leap effect with the 11. We just get sort of the glowy hands and then snap, 12.
Yeah.
And he's got new kidneys, and he doesn't like the color.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And here we are with Peter Capaldi.
Yes. And I mean, I think it's interesting this is the second time we've gotten a crashing Doctor, because from 10 to 11, the 11 was crashing the TARDIS, and then 11 to 12, 12 was crashing the TARDIS, and I just have one question. Do you happen to know how to fly this thing? You know, do.
Yeah. But I think, interestingly enough, I think that sets up the relationship between Clara and the 12th Doctor.
Mm-hmm. Of him helping her.
Yeah.
Of her helping him, I mean.
Oh, yeah, of her being... And it's one of the things that I didn't particularly like about that pairing. Loved Clara and the 11th Doctor. Did not like Clara and the 12th Doctor because she's the one she's not the companion.
Sort of almost an equal instead of a...
Or the rescuer, much more. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't crazy about that dynamic between the two of them.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose we should briefly, we mentioned it, but I guess just to hit all of our nuWho, we get, in the 50th anniversary of the Day of the Doctor, we did get to see the War Doctor regeneration. Very subtly, it depends how good your eyes are, you can kind of see, I don't know if it's just the power of suggestion, some Chris Eccleston in that regeneration. Again, the War Doctor, I guess, dying of old age, running a bit thin. I forget if that's the exact line. You know, of course. And then we sort of get...
Well, whether or not it's old age or necessity, you know, when the War Doctor wasn't needed anymore.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
So it wasn't about his age thinning him out. It was the need for the War Doctor.
I like that, yeah. And it's sort of an interesting... Because when you have these multiple Doctor specials, it's always dodgy, timey-wimey, but the way they explain it is that whenever there's a multi-Doctor special, not that they call it that they don't remember, I guess, anything that happens, because of course, how do you explain if there was a prior Doctor, then he would remember what the previous Doctor, blah, blah. But that the Ninth Doctor will have no memory of what the War Doctor did during the 50th, and so that he still has the guilt of thinking he did push the moment of killing, or whatever. And so that's an interesting thought about the War Doctor, that he sort of exists as this asterisk, because he doesn't have a number, of course, and messes up the entire numbering from now on. But,
yes.
But sort of your standard...
He and David Tennant with his 2 regenerations.
Yes. Tennant.
Bloody Tennant, yes.
So anyway, but any final thoughts about sort of the nuWho regenerations we've seen so far?
I think we haven't really talked a whole lot about the Capaldi one because we did more in the previous episode, but I think he's going back to the Tennant of, I don't want to go.
Right,
I don't want to go. I'm going to fight it. I'm going to stick my glowing hand in the snow and fight, and it's just not going to happen. Yeah,
because the 11th Doctor was sort of resigned, He'd done everything he thought he could do. He was an old Time Lord. Screw it, Daleks, you win, I guess.
And he'd gotten more chance than he thought he was going to.
Right.
Because he didn't think he was going to regenerate up until the end. And so this is actually a new lease for him. Mm-hmm. To an extent. But yeah, Peter Capaldi's Doctor is definitely throwing a temper tantrum about the whole thing. Shall we move on to Into the TARDIS library, darling? This is your specialty.
Yes, we are going to be talking very briefly about The Deadly Assassin, which was a serial that first appeared on October 30th, 1976. It was a 4-serial special starring the 4th Doctor. And I really couldn't find a good synopsis, so I'll do a very brief one off the top of my head, so this should be fun. The 4th Doctor receives a psychic warning that the president of Gallifrey, of the Time Lords, will be assassinated. And so he journeys to Gallifrey to prevent it, and unknowingly becomes the suspect of being the assassin. And so through the help of some other Time Lords, he tries to convince that he is in fact not the assassin. It is eventually discovered that a blackened, scorched, injured master and another mysterious Time Lord are responsible, and the 4th Doctor must try and fight and defeat this mysterious Time Lord in this mysterious zone, and we'll see if they survive. And the reason I really chose this was because this is the first time we hear of the 13th limit on regenerations. And another part of this storyline is that the Master is trying, the whole reasoning other than him just, always trying to rule the world or the universe, because the Master was trying to steal the Eye of Harmony, which was sort of hidden by Rassilon, sort of this great power source, and that he would that the Master was at the end of his regenerations, and that sort of would reset him. And of course, by the end of the serial, ups and downs, we think the Master is killed when he sort of falls, into the eye. See him at the end, his TARDIS disappears.
So then does this also set us up for the idea that you can get another set of regenerations?
Yeah, it's just...
Even though it doesn't necessarily it doesn't necessarily land at this point, that's an option. The fact that the Master gets it.
Right. Yeah, and so, that is interesting. If we're going to go back into the canon, can I really, we don't really know the 13 regenerations, or the 12, I guess if you're going to be technical, regenerations of the Master, because we've only seen, and this is off the top of my head, so I'm probably going to be wrong, 1, 2, 3 Masters in the Classic Era. I'm probably wrong on that, folks. Feel free to write me in. But
send him ugly letters.
So it is interesting whether in audio dramas and elsewhere we kind of fill in those other 12 or 13 Masters before this quote unquote cheat of him maybe getting more regenerations. And then later a her, of course. But of course we go back to the Time Lords, Gallifrey, the continuing plot. And I thought it was interesting. I know you may not have found it as much so, but I thought it was interesting in as much as that in the nuWho, we get the Doctor always looking back to Gallifrey and remembering them great, but when we see them, they're not that great. And so, like, I thought the Time Lords that we saw in The Deadly Assassin, you know, some were good, some were great. I mean, there ended up being that the person he was trying to defeat, Goth, I believe his name was sort of a corrupt politician Time Lord who was trying to be the next president.
Well, and we see the not so nice Time Lords in the Five Doctors as well, don't we? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think that's always the looking back on your past with rose-colored glasses.
And the 10th Doctor says that on his last episode that, Winfred or Wilfred always says, I thought you said they were the good guys. He's like, well, that's how I choose to remember them. I thought it was interesting. The Deadly Assassins, of course, is the only serial that has no companion at all for the Doctor. Well, at least the first one. I guess you could argue there's some other ones. I mean, you could argue that the Time Lords he sort of recruits are sort of his de facto companions, but Tom Baker's sort of on his own in this serial. Back to Gallifrey. And I think one thing we thought was interesting is that there are a lot of Time Lords that do get killed in this episode, and we wondered
who's going to be president next,
and also why didn't they regenerate?
Oh yeah.
There was a cute little moment where the Doctor sees a former classmate or something of his, and the classmate's like something I forget, like did you change your face or something like that, and Doctor said a few times or something, but
yeah.
Anyway, I did also like that there are some references to the second Doctor, because the second Doctor was put on trial and had a forced regeneration to the third Doctor. And so when the fourth Doctor's coming to Gallifrey, they're like, oh, this is the guy that got in trouble, and the one who got exiled and all that stuff. So I thought that was sort of, even though it had been several years since the second and third Doctor, that we still had sort of that canon. That's the Doctor Who doesn't always 100%, but they do try to respect the canon.
Yeah, and when they don't, it's all about the timey-wimey. So
exactly.
They have their own sort of built-in leeway.
Darling, if folks want to talk to you about your thoughts about regeneration, about the Time Lords, maybe Time Ladies, where can they reach you?
We are so excited about the Time Ladies. They can reach me on Twitter at One Phoenix Theater. And where can they reach you, darling?
You want to talk about snap regenerations or very long goodbyes, they can find me at NC Public Servant on Twitter. So, my wife, what are we going to be talking about next episode?
Next episode, we are going to be talking about... Oh, of course, we're going to be talking about the Christmas special, which we're very excited about. Are we going to watch it tomorrow?
Only if you're very good.
Oh, yes. I will be very good. We're going to watch it tomorrow. Hooray!
And of course, we will also be watching it in the movie theater, but we'll probably record before we see it in the movie theater. But we hope you all are having a happy and merry Christmas special, and we look forward to talking about it then. So until then, you are my favorite person to spend the holidays in all of time and space, Jessica.
Aw, see, I told you it was going to last for forever.
This is BBC Television.